Welcome to District 5500's Rotary Youth Exchange webinar. My name is Amy Graves, and I'm currently your District Youth Exchange Officer. Today, I'm going to give you an overview of what our District Governor, Ellie Patterson, has planned for the 2019-2020 year. What is Rotary Youth Exchange, or RYE, R-Y-E? It is Rotary International's premier program with over 100 countries participating for youth around the globe to enter into long and short-term youth exchange programs. RYE was originally and continues to be one of Rotary International's youth services programs focused on world peace and being ambassadors and spreading goodwill and understanding. In front of you, you'll see that we have District 5500's youth services programs, and RYE is only one of several. The Youth Exchange Program is specifically for ages 15 to 19-year-olds, and as I said earlier, we have clubs that are in more than 100 countries, so many districts are participating, and you can be proud that District 5500 is one of those. This slide shows you what the current makeup of Ellie Patterson's Youth Services Program team is made of. And what I've done is I've highlighted in blue the Youth Exchange Committee specifically, and I have put in a peach color those two programs, RYLA, or Rotary Youth Leadership Academy, and Interact, as the two programs that Rotary Youth Exchange most often intersects with because of the ages that the kids are involved with in each one of these programs. If you come back, you'll see that Interact is for high school kids, 12 to 18 years old, and the Rotary Youth Leadership Awards, I said Academy earlier, but it's awards, RYLA, is for age 14 and 30. So there's a lot of intersection in ways that our clubs can support kids as they are maturing and also expose them to different Rotary programs with the hope that they will join an adult Rotary club when they're a little bit older. So District 5500's Rotary Youth Exchange Committee specifically has some responsibilities, and I want to share with you that where it's couched in the wider Rotary International and Department of State landscape. District 5500 has two governing bodies, actually three governing bodies. Primarily, we are responsible to Rotary International and the U.S. Department of State, and they keep the guidelines for exchange programs out of and into the United States. You'll see a third one here, which is called the South Central Rotary Youth Exchange, or SCRY, which is a multi-district, and our District 5500 is a member of SCRY. And you'll see this and hear this throughout the presentation multiple times. So we are responsible for adhering to the U.S. Department of State regs and guidelines, the Rotary International regs and policies, and then we are, as I said, a member of SCRY, which helps us meet the two governing bodies of the U.S. Department of State and Rotary International. They are our allies. They're our resources, and they help keep us on the straight and narrow path with those two governing bodies, if you will, or regulatory bodies, I should say. So SCRY is a multi-district Rotary district. It has its headquarters in Missouri, and it has a whole swath of states in the midsection in the southwest of the United States. And we belong to SCRY, and we pay dues. And they provide training for us. They provide, as I said, regulatory guidance, monitoring for our compliance responsibilities with regard to Rotary Youth Exchange. The other thing that our District 5500 Rotary Youth Exchange Committee does is support you all at the club level. We are primarily there to help you ensure that the health and safety and well-being of the exchange students that come to our district is maintained. And we're also here as an intermediary and direct trainers for Rotary Youth Exchange, this being one of the first endeavors toward that. So today's webinar is about how clubs can participate in the Rotary D5500 Youth Exchange program. And it's pretty simple. It kind of mirrors what goes on at the district level. Club responsibilities include having a Rotary Youth Exchange Committee if you want to participate in the Youth Exchange program. Clubs are responsible for recruiting host families and also outbound students. Clubs drive the vetting process for host families, and that's in regard to criminal background checks, the host family application, and reference checks. Very much like what we all go through when we apply for a job. And then the club also includes just maintaining the database, which is on the RYE, that multi-district website. There's a database embedded in that, a portal embedded in that. And that's primarily to meet the regs of the Rotary International and the U.S. Department of State in the spirit of and for the purpose of keeping kids safe. At the club level, very much like at the district level, the Rai Committee Roles include a youth exchange officer, an inbound placement coordinator, as well as an outbound coordinator, a club counselor that is another resource for inbound and outbound students, and then a non-Rotary point of contact for inbound exchange students. And that is so that it's a check and balance so that the kids are safe. They've got multiple points of contact, multiple adults that they can go to within Rotary. And then, of course, they've got their host family and their school contacts. So the youth exchange officer at the club level is really the liaison, the point of contact with the D5500 RYE committee, and also the liaison with volunteers at the club level to make sure that the functions of Rotary Youth Exchange are being carried out at the very front line. The inbound placement officer works an awful lot with other countries and coordinating exchange relationships over the years. So this is something that's a relationship building kind of role. And then the outbound placement coordinator, of course, does a lot of the vetting, overseeing the vetting, and the interviewing and the application process for the kids that actually want to participate in D5500 as outbound students. The club counselor is a role that at the club level you can decide if you want it to be a media communications kind of public relations sort of role, in addition to being another hands-on adult for the inbound and the outbound students that are placed in your club and sent out from your club. So for Rotary Youth Exchange, it is not a direct exchange. However, it is a one-on-one exchange model. And the way that works is that if a club or district has an outbound student or a number of outbound students, that is going to determine the number of inbound students that the district or club is allowed to receive. So the kids don't go to each other's families, but they do go to each other's districts. And the only way that we can send or receive an inbound student in our district is to send a kid from outside of our district. They do not have to be Rotarians, but the clubs do sponsor the inbound and the outbound and support those kids in either direction. Now I'm going to show you a bunch of timelines right now, and I'm not going to get into the details of them and bore you to pieces. However, I did go ahead and include them in this so that you would have this PowerPoint as a reference in addition to other resources that we'll go over later in the PowerPoint. So remember I said that the number of outbound students that we send from within our district determines the number of inbound. That means practically that we need to have an outbound process happening at the beginning of the 2019 fiscal year, which for us is July 1 through June 30. So 2019 through June 30 of 2020. And so that's where I have started this timeline for tasks and deadlines. And I've tried to provide a little background on why each one is important. I'm starting with outbound again because we can't really receive and host any inbounds until we identify and send some outbounds and also find some receiving districts around the world that would be willing to find host families for kids from District 5500. So we start in July and August, and historically the youth exchange officer has sent an email to all of the newly promoted club presidents explaining what the process is and the associated budget and other resources that will be required if the club chooses to participate. And then it goes through, and this is up right now, April through September, outbound student applications are accepted by clubs, and they can go on the RYE website to get those applications and then send them to the clubs. They'll be triaged. But you go on the RYE website to get that application. So if you do hear of kids that are interested, direct them there. And I will share the website later. October 1, so we are in it right now since we are in August right now. We need to have all of our outbound applications done by October 1st. And that would be for the students or the youth to submit the applications to the clubs, Rotary Youth Exchange Committees for consideration. The clubs then preview the applications. Maybe the clubs choose to interview everybody. Maybe they select a few. It's going to be determined by the Rotary Youth Exchange or RYE Committee at the club level, and make a determination of which students and applicants to interview and vet, if you will, to decide if they would make good exchange students and represent Rotary very well. I put this bullet point twice in this presentation to tell the kids that they will not know their country assignments when you're interviewing them. They will have had a chance to put some of their priorities and preferences on their application. So you'll see that and you'll know that. But they will not be assigned a country assignment until around February. So if they're getting their applications in by October 1 at the latest, they won't know until 2019, they won't know until February of 2020 or around there what their country assignment will be. And that is because the District 5500 RYE Committee will be negotiating contracts in writing with other Rotary districts that will agree to take our kids and then therefore send us theirs. So the deadline for clubs to move the applications of the outbound youth from the club level to the district level is November 1. There is a form in place that your club presidents will receive that is a commitment, an acknowledgement, an education and acknowledgement, and then a commitment to sponsor an inbound student. So if we're going to send a student as an outbound student, the clubs and the district are committing to paying for the inbound exchange student. So no applications for outbound students will be accepted by the district without having the club president and also the club president-elect signing on that form, so that we have some assurance that we'll be able to uphold our commitments over a 2-year period. And you will see that this is a 2-year, if not 2.5-year process for a kid to decide to go apply, be vetted, and then actually be placed and then have their year exchange. So it's quite the time commitment. The district conducts interviews for outbound students. At the same time, that district committee is finalizing the placement contracts with other districts for our kids from D5500 to go out in the following year, which will be July or August, most likely, of 2020. And then in February, a lot of that will have been settled and will have sorted itself out. And there will be a one-day training for parents and outbound students. And this is primarily for the parents, although it is a great time to get the kids together and work with the Rotary clubs that are involved, as well as the district committee members, to provide that training and really get a great start and foundation. Now we're still on outbound student task and timeline, you'll notice. And so May comes around and the kids are getting ready to go. They're finishing up their school. They may have a few weeks of summer break, or they may take classes in the summer so that they can graduate on time after going through their youth exchange year. They may need to take some credits in order to have everything in place by the time they come back and are seniors in our U.S. high schools. So there's a 3-day training and orientation to help these kids prepare in May. And historically, ROTECs, which are basically alumni of Rotary Youth Exchange, they don't have to have been from D5500, but they do have to have been on the Rotary Youth Exchange program. So those kids, teenagers, tend to pay more attention and care more about what their peers are saying. So someone that's closer to their age gets a training of trainers as a ROTEX or multiple alumni, and they facilitate most of the workshops for the outgoing students as far as their 3-day orientation launch, if you will. So depending on when the hosting districts are accepting our kids from D5500, our outbound students would leave July, August, or very early September, and they will be placed for a year in the host district. This is being mirrored in our counterpart districts, and their outbounds are our inbounds. So the timeline kind of matches in these other Rotary districts that are participating in RYE. When our kids come back, mostly in July, historically, what District 5500 has done is gather them together, spend, half a day or so together, have a meal, lunch, go visit a museum, knockabout. And it's nice if we have a RYE alumni that participated in that 3-day district orientation before the kids left to come back and be a part of their debriefing and their reentry, because that in itself is a process. And as clubs, as club committees, you can support the students and the natural families that our outbound students are returning to at the end of their exchange year. So that was the outbound student timeline, which, as I've said, drives the inbound student opportunities that we have to host kids from other countries here in D5500. This process mirrors what we just went over for the outbound, but in other countries. So what does it look like on our end? As the inbound process, we start negotiating with the exchange districts in November, and it takes several months. But again, we have to wait to see how many of the clubs are going to participate in sponsoring an outbound student, to know how many outbound students we have, which is the formula for how many inbound students we may host. So that's why inbound student process on our end begins in the late fall, early winter, and then goes through winter. So whatever District X's outbound students are becomes our inbound reciprocal exchange. In February, after we've gotten all of the exchange paperwork and agreements in writing from our sister districts that are going to participate with us, and we them, at that point in time, it becomes useful and pertinent for the clubs to go ahead and have their local coordinators, they're called, be vetted. And this is anybody who's going to have any contact with the youth, inbound or outbound. Those are local coordinators. They're vetted, they've got their background checks, they can fill in for one another, and they can help do the host family and student check-ins, which are done on regular intervals depending on if it's the host family or the inbound or the outbound. And that's a training all unto itself. But in February, the district is actively working with those clubs who have chosen to participate in RYE to help get those local coordinators trained, vetted, checked out, so that they can actually start supporting the kids that are coming in to D5500. And I should just say that anyone who is on the RYE committee at the club or the district level needs to be, it's highly, strongly recommended by the SCRI multi-district that we belong to have anybody who is there at the club or district involved with the youth exchange to become a local coordinator or an LC. So this is the backbone volunteers that will take care of both outbound, inbound, and host family throughout the year. So we're still on inbound now. February and April, the clubs have worked at the local level to identify host families, and also they have received the inbound student applications in this period of time. And after the host families have also become themselves vetted, background checked, reference checked, and have all of their documents uploaded and entered into the SCRI database, then the club local coordinators or LCs can work with the families to make the best placements with the kids in the host family makeup that we have that year, to try to make it fit the best we can. So all of that's going on February through April. And then the clubs themselves, as I just said, upload the host family documents into the SCRI database. May through July, the district starts initiating and monitoring the visa application process for those inbound kids that have agreed to, from districts that have agreed to participate with us. So the district is talking with other district liaisons as well as embassies and SCRI, and making sure that that all runs smoothly. It can take up to 3 months for a visa to be issued. It typically runs about 6 weeks, but the timeline is set up for worst case scenario. So that's why the May deadline, to have the club get all of their applications and host family data and all of that uploaded into the SCRI database. It all depends, it builds on one another, and all depends on each thing being done in a particular time for the next thing to happen. So somewhere in July or August, the inbound students arrive into D5500. We have a welcome package for them. The clubs greet them when they arrive, the families, of course. And as a district, we want to provide potentially another host family orientation. It will have been a while. And also the inbound students need to have some sort of peer support and also understand the structure that we're talking about today from their vantage point, all the resources that Rotary is providing for them at the club level and the district level, so that they know who they can go to if there's ever any bumps in the road experienced. Now, this is all a great deal to take in. I have been trying to get my own mind wrapped around it for a long time here this past year, and I am just now starting to get an idea, a roadmap. And what has helped me will be the things that help you. This is a pullout of the Rotary Youth Services, or excuse me, the Rotary Youth Exchange District Committee. You can see that we've got the compliance and the youth protection folks all in place. We are looking currently in August of 2019 for someone who loves dealing with data and is very detail oriented and wants to have a flexible schedule where they can do that at their convenience and help the district, help the clubs to get all of our data inputted into the SCRI database on time and make sure that the kids are taken care of and that the host families are having a good experience and have the support that they also need. At the district level, we're also looking for someone who loves to work with the children and the young adults, both 14 to 19, remember? So outbound student coordinator and the inbound student coordinator. We're actively looking for that. So if you or you know somebody who is interested, please get in touch with me, and I'll reach out to them or give them my information, which I'll share with you at the end of this presentation. So the D5500 District Rotary Youth Exchange Committee is obviously the best resource that you will have at the club level. But there's some other online resources that I found useful. The first is the Rotary Youth Exchange page on our own district's website. We have links there to other services, notices like the one for this webinar. And as we go, if you become involved with a RYE committee at the club level or the district, we'll be building this page out over time and making it into a library so that there is some continuity and some sustainability for Rotary Youth Exchange as time goes by. Another resource is, of course, the multi-district that we belong to, the scry.org website. I have found this particular website and the volunteers of this particular multi-district to be the most helpful, accessible, and useful bunch of information. And they've sat with me and they'll sit with us as we feel our way along this year, since you may not be new watching this, but many of us will be. I certainly am. And I've got the website here. It's scry.org. And then finally, Rotary International, the Rotary.org website, has its own youth exchange page. For this, I'm sure it won't be the first time you've heard it. It's almost easier to go into a search engine and type out Rotary International and then plus whatever you're looking for to come up with the resources. But there are tons of them out there that come back to this website. The D5500 Rotary Youth Exchange has set up an email that will point to me this year and maybe next year, but it will stay with whomever is fulfilling the youth exchange officer for our district. So this is an address, youth exchange officer at rotaryd5500.org. It's a Gmail account. And save that, share it, and like I said, anything that you send there comes to me directly and will go to whomever succeeds me when the time comes. Thank you so much for your participation in this today. I hope that you'll use the timeline especially as a resource when you're considering whether or not your club will be able to participate this year. And of course, reach out to me if you have any questions. That's the best way for me to learn as well, right alongside with you, and we will go from there. Let's look forward to a great 2019-20 youth exchange experience for host families, outbound students, and of course our inbound students.